you got to play where you're fit. I have kids on my team that could go play on a couple of these other, bigger names in our team, but they're not going to get the minutes they're going to get there. And so I always tell them, you got to make the decision that you want.
Good morning to some, good evening to others. I'm your host, Preston Jackson, with the Next Conversation podcast. Today's going to be a good one. I have a father to the high school travel coordinator of Skills Center Elite, head coach of class of 2027 Skills Center Elite UA Rise team, director of basketball operations at Tampa Prep, and one of the Final Word podcast hosts of Mr. Dave LaMarre. Dave, thank you for joining.
Hey, appreciate you having me, Preston. What do they call it? First time caller, long time listener.
Yeah.
I discovered your show a while ago, and
Okay.
I really appreciate what you do and the guests you have on. You do a great job.
Man, I appreciate it, and you'll be right in line with the others. And Dave has a very good scope of the basketball scene here statewide. And we're going to get into this basketball stuff. This is kind of like part two of a conversation I had. And it started with travel basketball, but this is kind of a travel situation in its totality. All right. So there are a couple hot button issues that are kind of floating around, and we'll stay in the basketball space because that's what you're good at. And right now is about to hit peak basketball season in July with the live periods. The first question I want to ask you is, as long as you've been in the travel basketball circuit, what is probably the singular factor that you run in and year out about players and parents wanting to join specific teams?
That's a great question. And we'll keep this generally around the high school realm and not like the middle school realm, because it can be kind of two different philosophies there.
All right, fair.
I think in middle school, middle school and elementary school, I say third, fourth, and fifth grade elementary school, and then sixth, seventh, eighth middle school, and then high school. I think you want to kind of play with your friends and somewhere local. And then there seems to be this tipping point when you get to high school of the kids that want to or think they can play at the next level, so that's two different conversations. And then where should they play? Do you leave the team that you've played with for the last 6 years and go to something better? Do you stay there and try to bring people in? Or do you rock with the guys you've had and maybe add one or two players? The money in all sports right now is crazy. NIL, and this isn't about NIL, but the NIL that starts in college is trickling down into high school. We actually haven't seen it much in Florida as other states, but it's also happening at the travel level. I know multiple kids that are getting 6-figure contracts for work that, they're doing over the course of 4 to 5 months. And some are making the right decision. It could be life-changing money for some of these kids. It can change their families, and some are chasing a shiny object and probably would have been better where they were before. And so, I'm not sure how, I know you had Joe on another show, but it's a different podcast. So I'll educate people a little bit in case you didn't listen to that. There's, Nike EYBO is the best of the best. So it's number one. If you're an Adidas, if you're an Under Armour, you're on Puma, you're on New Balance. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. And then I try to give a factual, year in and year out. I would say Under Armour and Adidas flip-flop between one or two. Last year, the college coaches I spoke to said Adidas had better players. And now this year, Under Armour's pretty loaded. So it might have changed, and then, Puma and New Balance, are now spending money to get into that space. The challenge that some of these people are making are they're changing travel teams as much as they're changing high school teams. And for some kids, it makes sense, Preston, but for some kids, they just want the gear. They
Oh,
don't want they don't want to play. They're like,
oh,
I don't have to. I don't. I can. They'll pay for my flight. They'll pay for that, and I'm going to play 6 minutes a game. And they could have played where they were 2 years ago and be playing 28 minutes a game and be playing in front of 100 college coaches. So
right.
it's really and then they get to their senior year and they're blaming their high school coach and their travel coach of why don't I have any offers.
Mm.
Um, so it's interesting. It's really interesting out there. Um,
And and let me ask you this, and stay in that space now. We got kids flip flopping from team to team, circuit to circuit. And then you have the circuits that are fluctuating based on the talent that they have within their circuit.
right.
Um, let, I guess where I want to go with this is it the money that is making the kids flip flop within teams? And is it also the money that's making the teams flip within circuits?
That's a great question. Um, so let's talk about Florida for a second. Your core
Okay.
teams aren't leaving. So Florida Rebels, Knight Riders, they've been with Nike for I think both 10 plus years. I mean, I think Rebels even long. Rebels is longer than that. They've been with
Okay.
Nike for. They're not going anywhere unless something crazy happens.
Okay.
Um, on the Adidas side, it's been the same run by the same people, but different name. It used to be Chandler Parsons. Now it's Austin Rivers. Adidas very well respected. Fifth. Their 16U team last year won the whole thing. Very talented players on that team. Very very
Mm-hmm.
talented players. So great name there. And I don't want to leave. And then on the Under Armour side, you have SOH, which is primarily down south,
Okay.
where Sean Aviv went to Cincinnati. You might people will know that name. Um, they're very well respected, and so I don't think they're leaving as much as players might be leaving as much, or these other circuits, which I think do a tremendous job of. So Nike now never did this before, Preston. They never
Mm-hmm.
really cared about what I would call the second tier. So
Okay.
not your power four players, but your second tier. Nike was never really worried about that.
Okay.
They now understand how important it is. So they've come up with EYCL. So it's
Mm.
Nike's second, quote, your second division. But if you
Okay.
start kids playing on that team, you'd be like, man, they're legit.
Okay.
Um, Under Armour has UA Rise, which is what Skill Center's on, Southwest Florida Hoops is on, All Balls on, All Balls
Mm-hmm.
loaded. I mean, All Balls on, um, Powerhouse Bulls. I don't want to forget a team in the state, but um, Tony Gaskin's Elite, which has one or two teams, which is out of Polk County's on. Um, they're on there, and then Adidas has what they call Adidas Gold.
Okay.
Um, so theirs, and then Puma. You got some real movement on Puma because they haven't had a steady flow in regards to the leadership perspective. Like the person that
Mm-hmm.
runs Nike's been there forever. The person that
Okay.
runs Under Armour, it's three guys that actually own the platform that then work, and then it'll be operated by somebody else. So those guys aren't going anywhere. That's Tor, and I know them personally. And then on
Mm-hmm.
the Adidas side, the same thing. Puma has some really, really good teams and good players, um, but you'll see some fluctuation there. We locally had a team that played on the Puma circuit last year that was really, really good, and they were on their what they called their second circuit, the
Right.
uh, the next circuit, and they
Okay.
didn't get invited to Pro 16, and they were drastically better than many other teams Pro 16, so they
Okay.
just left. And I believe they left because the organization, they didn't have quote that big time name, but they were
Uh-huh.
really good. I mean, they got kids on that team that have D1 offers, and so they lose the consistency there. It was probably their loss because that team's now going and playing, and they got kids that are getting multiple offers.
Okay.
Um, Back to what you know, to talk upon that though, like you got to play where it fits for you,
Mm.
and um, our 2026 team, very well respected. Their track record's incredible. They got They got JoJo on there. He could literally play on any team, and any team would take JoJo, right? And then
Right.
they have, I don't want to leave a name off, but they literally have a kid that just got an offer from Navy that if he would sign a dotted line tomorrow, Navy would take him. And Navy, Navy's obviously very well respected institution, but they're not too bad at basketball either. Actually,
Okay.
former USF assistant and local that everybody will know, Scott Wagers, who was at Robinson when they had all the players back in the 90s, is the assistant
Mm-hmm.
there, and he's the one that recruited them. So he's on that team. You got the kids from Lecanto, Braylon and JT. Both have got off, not offers yet, but interest from Stetson, North Florida, plus a bunch of the Ivies. Um, and then you got KJ Morgan at TC, who's a two-sport athlete. You got Kai Brookings, you got Kai Levy, you got Moses Allen at CDS. Um, he could probably go to an Ivy and play, but he might
Okay.
go to like a high institution because he's very high academic. He might go to like a high institution D3 school and
I
play
know. I know
basketball
Moses.
there.
I know Moses Allen. I know Moses Allen and his family personally. That's awesome to
He's
hear.
an
That's awesome to hear how he's doing.
he's an unbelievable kid. I talked to his dad and
Okay.
his mom quite a bit. I got
Yep.
colleges that reached out to me about him yesterday. So
Okay.
but Moses isn't going to make a basketball decision. He's going to make a, career
I can
decision.
correct. Yeah.
Um, and so UA Rise, the one thing I think they do better than anybody else, and people may not like this, is you get to play in the same building as UAA. And I'll tell this story. I personally will talk about my team. We're a 16U team. We're a really good team. We're not the best. We're not the
Yeah.
worst, but we play hard.
Yeah.
We're competitive. We can play with anybody.
Yeah.
Well, in May, we were playing before B Mays 17s that have Chris Washington. B Mays is loaded. And we were playing the game before them. And so at halftime, my kids look at me and they go, Coach, there's Preston, there was 50 colleges at our
Yes,
game. And I
sir.
said to the guys, and I've had these, I said, guys, they're not here for you. But you know what
Mm-hmm.
you can do? Is you have an opportunity to play in front of these coaches. Now, they weren't
Yep.
here to watch us. They were here
Yeah.
because they wanted a seat before Chris Washington came and play.
Yeah.
Well, we beat a team on paper we probably should have not beat. And now we had a couple kids that have coaches that now know their name. Now they can't play
Yeah.
at the level that there, but we're in the same building. 2 days
Absolutely.
later, we're playing next to Middlesex Magic, which has had players that people know like Pat Connington, Duncan Robinson. They've put, they're probably the cream of the crop when it comes to Under Armour with Team Thrill and some of these other teams.
Okay.
Same thing happened. The coach, was there watching it and turns around and watches our game because Middlesex was up by 30. And so
Right.
the way Under Armour runs their circuit, it's first class, it's professional, and you got to play where you're fit. I have kids on my team that could go play on a couple of these other bigger names in our team, but they're not going to get the minutes they're going to get there. And so I always tell them, you got to make the decision that you want. And I know Joe mentioned it on the other when he was talking about it. Arguably
Yep.
my best player left, and everyone said to me, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" I'm not going to do anything about it. The kid had an opportunity to play on a high level with Adidas. He's got to go he's got to go and do it. That was his. I'm never going to tell him he can't do it. And there was an opportunity that he should have done. Now,
All
people
right.
thought I
Well.
was crazy when I said
Well.
that, but
Well, and that's okay. You could be or you could be not, regardless. But let me ask you. Let me throw this bomb in there. Are teams that have a shoe brand attached to them the better teams?
the teams that have
So let's just say,
consistently, yeah.
yeah.
So
All right, go ahead.
so if you took 1 through 16 on Nike, let's just use that, and
All
you
right.
took 1 through 16 on another platform, and I'm not going to just use one because I actually think they're all pretty good. And so you took 1 through 16 on Hoop Group, 1 through 16 on Under Radar, and 1 through 16 on Recruit Look.
Yeah.
1 through 4, you know, 1 through 4, you probably have some dominance part of it.
Okay.
But the depth that you'll have on the shoe circuits is probably better. So like 1 and 2, EYBL is probably a bad example, but like Adidas, or Under Armour, the top two two or three teams there are better than probably the top two or three teams on Hoop Group or like on the radar. And then like 4 through 10, you'll get some really, really good teams. There's really, really good teams from Florida that aren't on a circuit and go play there and have really good players.
Yeah.
But then you get to teams, 15 through 30, and then you're much deeper. Like on our
Okay.
circuit, like on Under Armour UA Rise, there's 48 teams in 16U, which may sound like a lot to people, but you gotta remember this is the
Mm-hmm.
entire United States. Like in 2 weeks, the closest team I'm playing for me is like in Tennessee. We're playing a team from San Francisco, a team from Montana. So when you say 48 teams,
Okay.
that's not a lot when you think about it. The number 30 team on Under Armour is definitely much better than the number 30 team on the independents. But
Okay.
I'm never going to take a shot at. And then we were independent at Skill Center for as long as it could be. We just had an opportunity that we thought made sense for us with the way they ran it, and then we went and did it. Now we had opportunities to go other places, and we didn't do it. And we felt like we made the right decision. We left a lot of that in JoJo's hands because JoJo's the one that got us the opportunity because of his
Yeah.
ability.
Yep. He's the driver. Yep.
Which, people commented on Instagram posts and all this, like, how can you let him make that decision? Well, if it wasn't him, we wouldn't even have a decision to be made.
Right. He's
And
the
he's
breadwinner. He's the attractive piece.
correct, and he's intelligent and smart, and he talked to Chris, he talked to John and Chris and his dad and and me about it. So, I think you got to find the right circuit. The challenge, I think, where you're getting to, and I'll say this, we have kids that will go and play on these other team, on some of these bigger teams, and not even in the state either, right? Like, hey, I'm not going to play in this team. I'm going to go play for a team in Georgia or Alabama, and they're playing 3-4 minutes a game. And if they were to play, I'm not even going to use Skill Center. If they were to play with All Ball, Southwest Florida Hoops, um, anybody, they'd be playing 25 minutes a game. But
Right.
They're saying that they're on the top circuit, and they're top circuit, and it's better. There's a team
What?
out of in the middle, over in Orlando, Showtime Ballers.
Yep.
They're on New Balance, but their teams are really good. They're 7 teams. I always get confused which ones are Showtime Ballers and then the other team that they have. But they
Well,
have
let me
go
ask
ahead.
you this. Let me ask you this. Is there an advantage or now let's do this. Better question. Is there a perceived advantage of being on one shoe brand circuit versus another?
Yeah, Nike is the if you're on Nike, then you think the other ones are second tier. And so
And why? Why
there's
is that? Why is that?
well, Nike started it. I mean, they did
Okay.
there's a documentary on it. There was a
Okay.
period of time even when I think like Fox Sports or somebody was streaming all their games.
Okay.
They spend they spend a lot of money on their media. Like you can go to Nike EYBL right now, Preston, on your computer. You'll get
Mm-hmm.
better stats than 70% of Division II conferences. And no, you'll get minutes plus minuses. Like you can see everything.
Okay.
And so there is a perceived notion. It is a perceived, but they spend a lot of money to make it really, really good. They do a good job of
Okay.
marketing when Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James walk in to watch their two sons play. Right, so the hype around it is really good.
How do I get on that circuit? How do I get on that circuit?
But so that's it. You can't pay to play. Like you can't say, hey, here's $100,000. I want to come, put our team on there. You got to earn your way. But that's the same thing with Under Armour or Adidas. You can't just
Okay.
say, hey, here's $250,000 and we want to sign a 3-year contract and do it. So you got to earn your way on there. But the part that we've heard a lot about, and I think I'm addressing your question, is we have a lot of talent in Florida that don't necessarily go to the next level because they're choosing to play on a team for the name versus the team that they fit. And
It's important.
when people first talk to me, though, you know, they think I'm, I come off the wrong way or I'm being negative. I just want kids to do good. When I coached at Plant for 6 years, our biggest rival was Jesuit.
Mm-hmm.
You would never do anything for a kid at Jesuit if you coached
Okay.
at Plant. Well, there was a kid on Jesuit that I thought was really, really good, and I thought he could have played the next level. So there was a camp. I'm going to leave it nameless. There was a camp that's invite only, and you get to invite 2 guys to it. So every year I
Okay.
can invite 2 guys to this camp. I
Okay.
used one of my invites on a Jesuit kid. People thought I was
Okay.
nuts, Preston. Well,
Yeah, I can believe it.
that young man got about 17 schools that were interested in him, and then he was able to go play at the Division II level for a year, but he didn't
Nice.
have an ego. There's other
Yeah.
kids that I've said, "Hey, why don't you go to this camp?" And they'll say to me, "Well, what D1s are going to be there?" And I'll
Yeah.
say none. And they're like, "Well, I don't want to go." And I'm like, "Well, you're not D1 yet. Like, do, do you think you can go down off of Kennedy, to University of Tampa and play for them, or go across the bridge to Eckerd and play for them, or 40 miles away to Florida Southern? You're not
Yep.
good enough to play in any of those teams, and you're asking me what D1 team to go play on? Like, that's the problem like that's the problem we have.
Let me.
I
I'm
mean,
gonna. I'm gonna give you.
go
I'm gonna give you a term, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind, and we'll go from there. All right. Here's a term: playing just to play.
waste of time.
All right, and go.
So when you're young and you got a ton of energy, play as much as you want. Third grade, you
Mm-hmm.
play 60 games. Fourth grade, you
Mm-hmm.
play 80 games.
Mm-hmm.
But what people don't, these parents don't understand is you're playing 60 games from, middle of, let's just say, Thanksgiving to 4th of
Right.
July. So
Right.
that's 7 months. That's not a ton. So then you transfer, you get into your 8th grade year. This is a great segue. You get into
Okay.
your 8th grade year and you go and play, but we have to constantly, and not just with skills and everybody, you got to remind these parents like, hey, I want my kid to go to Ballin' on the Beach in June, which is a great tournament. And if you're in 3rd through 7th grade, you should go to it every single time, not just because of the basketball, but because of the experience. It's really cool.
Okay.
But when you're in 8th grade and then you're going into high school and you live in Florida, you got 3 weeks to be with your high school team. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're one of the rare few that are good enough to be with your varsity team, you sure as I'm not going to swear. You sure as hell shouldn't miss it to go to a Ballin' on the Beach tournament when your high school team is going to go play in an event, whatever it is. And
Okay.
then the second thing is you got to make sure that you're ready to go to your for your high school workouts. And I know
Right.
you got more of a football background, so I'm going to give you an analogy here.
I'll
Here,
take it. Let's
um,
go.
football, you say you're a good program, the Armwoods, Whartons, Techs, Plants, other than
Yeah.
most of them are playing 33 kids a lot, 11 on offense, 11 on defense, 11 special teams. You got 3 to 4 kids, and maybe go both ways. So say 28 kids.
Yeah.
Basketball, you got 5. And
Yeah.
in Hillsborough County, public schools, they don't give a damn about JV basketball. So
Mm.
if you're at a school like Sumner, you're at a school like Plant, Steinbrenner, I'm going to use the big schools, Wharton,
Yeah.
Newsom,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got 2,000 kids there.
Yep.
So say you're taking 10% of 2,000 is 200. Let's just say half are girls and half are boys. Let's go to 1,000. 10% is 100. And so you take another 10% is 10. So you may be getting 4% of the kids are going to go and play. If you're not ready to go with your high school coach on June 1st, you're in trouble. And
Mm.
why I say the phrase you just said, playing just to play,
Yeah.
you need to, when you go into your 8th grade year, to play tournaments that matter. And I'll speak
Okay.
on I love to play as much as anybody. Because I love the families that I've coached and the relationships that I got. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope, and I say this all the time, I hope when, my kids are all going to be juniors, that in, 10 years, 15 years, when they're getting married, I get invited to their wedding. That will be the best thing that, that will be the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
This year, we only played when to play. And I got some people that were saying, why aren't we playing this weekend? Why aren't we playing this weekend? And I have two new parents on my team, and they're saying, hey, that team's going to play there. That team's going to play there. And I said to the mom, and she totally got it. But I said to the mom very direct, my job right now is not to win a $25 plastic trophy.
Right.
My job is to get your son ready for his junior year of high school basketball, which arguably nowadays is your most important year with the transfer portal, and to be
Right.
ready for the live period. So we're not chasing trophies. And I said,
Nope.
to make it even more of a point, we aren't going to enter a tournament that there's a bracket format to it, Preston. And
Hmm.
they looked at me like I was nuts.
Because it's
And
showcase. High school is showcase. It's not about the trophies
so
now.
I didn't play one bracket tournament from March 15th to now. I haven't played in one tournament that there was a bracket format.
They haven't
And
gotten used to it yet.
no, so now they've bought into it, but they've
Okay.
bought into it because they've seen a little success. We
Gotcha.
went and played in a tournament that I've never got invited to before. Frankly, the guy that ran it said that, hey, your team's not good enough to be here. If you want it, I'll put you on court 9. And I
Okay.
said, no. Well, this year he said, hey, I think, I heard you got a couple of good players. You've gotten better. Let's go and play. So we went and played 2 games in an event versus playing in another event that would have had 4 games. It
Yeah.
was much more impactful, meaning
Okay.
the people that were there is the reason why we're doing travel basketball now.
Right.
They got
Right.
they
Understood.
got numbers of people that can actually help them. There were D2 NIA coaches there that have reached out to them. So playing just to play it is terrible. But a lot of that comes from is that they want to create the social media video when they go and beat a team that they're 50
Mm-hmm.
points better than, to then be able to create a highlight film.
Right.
But that's not going to get you recruited. And when you're in high school, your goal is to make your goal in your high school team is to make your high school team the best they want, the best they can be. And the first step is to win a district title. The second step is to win a regional title. And the third step is to get to Lakeland. If you don't
Yeah.
win a district championship, it really doesn't matter. If you don't make it to regionals, what did you accomplish? And so playing just to play, it's ridiculous. Like if you're gonna, I see teams that just posted they're 55-6. Like how have you played 60 games? Like it,
So
it does
so
it does nothing.
the next and the last layer of the onion I want to hit on is the middle school versus high school argument. And I think you kind of said some of that stuff. You definitely alluded to it when you're talking about bracket play versus showcase play. When you're talking about the success, what should be the success of your high school team. Now, full encompassing with travel basketball and high school basketball, what is the defined difference between middle school and high school?
It's a great question. The the flip from 5th grade to 6th grade, I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
it is, but there's a drastic difference in the level of play from 5th to 6th grade
Mm,
in across the board. Now, there are really, really good 5th grade teams, but
okay.
there's something about, I think, kids at that age, some start, puberty. 5th to 6th grade is a huge jump. And so, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade is about having fun, competing. The middle school level, I think bracket play matters, Preston,
Oh,
and play for championships because kids need to learn how to compete.
okay.
Because we live in this world where everybody gets a trophy and everybody does that. If you're good and you're good, then you got to learn how to compete. And then if
Gotcha.
you're not, and so I think there's value in that.
Okay.
And then so 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, compete. And if you're a good team, go and play in the correct events. And play 10 to 12 tournaments between, Thanksgiving and June, and go and compete. But when
Yeah.
you're in high school, if you don't have that compete level ingrained in you, and this is, the theory, like, can you teach someone to be a leader, or
Right. Yep.
or can they be, if you don't have the compete level by the time you get to high school, you're probably not getting it. Now,
Nope. It's too late.
there's a 5%ers that, can get that after the fact. But I'm saying, like, you're playing Monopoly with your mom and you lose and you're pissed off. Not that you would flip the board over, but like you got to get that compete level.
Yep.
And so I think that's the biggest difference. and
Okay.
then to learn how to deal with the adversity. I think 8th grade basketball has become really hard
Mm.
for some kids, and
Okay.
I'm a I'm not a I'm not for it. I'm not against it. People think sorry about that. I'm not for it. I'm not. But 8th grade is the year that I need to do the math on this, but 8th grade is the year that a lot of these kids reclass because once you get to
Okay.
high school, Preston, you
Yeah.
can't reclass because
You
you only
can't.
get 4 years, and
Correct. The
so
eligibility.
you could have a kid that's 13 in 8th grade playing against a kid that's 15 and could be 6, depending on when his birthday is and the
Yep.
math on that. So 8th grade can be really, really challenging.
Okay.
But if you get the game of basketball, and we're keeping this basketball centric because I'm not smart enough to talk on football or the other
No,
sports,
you're good. You're good.
you can tell if a kid has it or not.
Right.
And there's kids I watch in 8th grade, and they're like, "Man, well, why are you playing him? He's struggling." Well, you know what? He hasn't even hit puberty yet. He hasn't even gone to the weight room. Like, he'll be
Right.
fine. And those same kids that they're talking about are now kids that are doing a very, very good job at some of the best schools that we got in our area. So I think middle school's really, really important. I actually was just on the phone with our coaches about 2 hours ago
Yeah.
that you've made the decision to want to coach. Nobody forces you to coach. Nobody
Right.
nobody came to me and said, "Hey, you got to coach youth sports because we're going to pay you nothing and you're going to give up all your weekends with your wife." Nobody made. So if you've made that decision, you now have an obligation to give them 110% because
Absolutely.
you have that much of an influence in these young men and women's lives.
Yep.
And
I agree with you.
if you aren't doing that, it's an injustice and it's not fair to them.
I
And the
believe
one
you.
thing that I can say, is I gave 110% from when I took over this team in 6th grade. My son was on another team within Skill Center in 6th grade is when we go to two teams, Preston. So we'll have
Yep.
like the A and B team. I had my son go to the second team. I just, it made sense for him. And there were some other kids that I wanted him to be around. And
Okay.
and it was all about fundamentals, fundamentals. And it was my obligation that when I was going to be there Tuesday night or Thursday, that was my priority and that you did it. And you can't do it, half in or half out because it's not fair to the kids. And so,
Correct.
and around the state, we do it. I mean, the talent pool in Florida is wild right now. There's been a lot of basketball in the last 3 weeks here, and I'll keep it quick so I know you got something else. But
No, you're good.
there was just two high school live periods at Gainesville. There was one actually that ended today. That was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then last week there was one in Gainesville that there was over
Okay.
150 coaches at
I heard about that one.
Maine, as far as west as north, as Idaho, and as south to like New Mexico. And then there's a couple other events that were put on where 15 or 20 colleges came from the Northeast that came down here to see our kids.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Um, and I was sitting up in Ohio watching JoJo play against JoJo's team playing against Pro One. There was like three top 100 players on the court,
Yeah.
and I kind of call him the Godfather. Paul Biancardi came on Sunday to watch, and Paul
Yeah.
Biancardi is kind of like the whatever Kirk Herbstreit of college football, and
I've been trying to get him on the show too. I'll reconnect with him. We're trying to get him on the show.
he's hard to get on. But
Yeah, I
but
know.
but Paul said, "Hey, where's that kid going to school?" And he wasn't even actually a kid on our team. And I said, "Oh, he's not going to school, but he got offered from X. I don't want to say the school. He got offered from XYZ college. That
Yeah.
college just made it to the Elite Eight in Division Three." He said no. Then he
Mm.
said, "Hey, where's this kid going to school?" And I said, "He's not going to school." This is a public service announcement. In Florida, we don't have Division Three schools just
Nope.
because there was never Division Three schools that opened here. It's not
Right.
because Division Threes are bad. They're high academic, they have incredible facilities, and they have players year after year that go to the NBA or the NFL from Division Three. And so if
Correct.
you have the opportunity to go and play at that, and you're not getting the opportunity to go and play at a different level,
You better go.
don't say no to it because
Correct.
that coach that coach will now tell you because the transfer portal has changed everything, Preston.
Yep.
They know they're changing teams every single, year. And so,
Yes, son.
you know, my thing to everybody is play where you're getting recruited. Hey coach, I want to
Correct.
go play at USF. Well, USF never even sent you a letter in the mail. Like,
Right.
let's worry about playing somewhere else and then get there. But again, that goes back to being um, trying to chase the shiny object, want to have cool sneakers, want to have 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 cool things. Go look at Williams College. Go look at the facilities they got. Go to Middlebury. I could go on and on about these Division threes. I mean, their
Well,
facilities are incredible.
well, we're gonna have, because this is only the tip of the iceberg for these type of topics that I know everybody's kind of intrigued about, and I want to get the different perspective from different angles to be able to supply different answers. I'll just be that vessel for the conversation. But when I get part three, because right now you're going to be, let's just classify it as part two. When I get part three on, I want to have yourself and like two or three other folks who are in that travel space within these conversations that have these open conversations about some of the hot topics right now in travel basketball. But Dave, I appreciate your time on this evening, man. This has been really enlightening. And I kind of had a feeling that you were going to kind of provide some good information, man, and you did.
Hey, again, I appreciate you having me on. This was a lot of fun, and part three. Let's talk offline. We can get a couple names to throw out. We can get team names from not this area, like guys down in South Florida
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or Orlando, and we can kind
Yep.
of get the 3, 4 of us on here and go.
Man, that'd be good, man. I'm gonna reach out to you. I'm gonna let me produce this show, and then I'll reach out to you for those connects.
All right, Preston. Hey, keep doing what you're doing. I really enjoy listening and watching.
My man.